Welcome back, guys. It's been a long time since I made a guide video, but Ayrton Senna himself has asked me to make a guide on Ernie's Paradise challenge from Motorsport Manager. So welcome to Ernie Paradise Guide Challenge Pack DLC Challenge Pack Guide Challenge Pack Guide Challenge. Alright, so this is admittedly the hardest challenge, but it's not impossible. The first time I played this through, I think I won by like 2 or 3 points. It was a very close margin. I played it through a second time, got all the footage, recorded every race. I've uploaded the raw footage, well, slightly edited just down to the winning attempts. And I did say how many attempts that I took for each race. But yeah, you can watch the raw footage. It'll be in the playlist along with this, and I'll put the playlist link in the description below. And also I'll upload all my notes that I'm reading off of and kind of what I've, kind of summary of what happened over the challenge. And just let me know if you want me to go into any more detail on anything. So without further ado, let's start how to win Ernie's Paradise Guide challenge. So first, you're going to want to ensure that your difficulty is set to -10, which you might say, well, that's kind of hurting the spirit of the challenge. It's not going to be as hard. Well, if you're having trouble and you're searching a guide, just go ahead and, turn it down to -10 difficulty so that it's the easiest possible racing. And also, there used to be a way that you could make it so the strategy calls were less realistic for the AI. It was like normal and realistic. I couldn't find that option this time, so I don't know if they got rid of it. Next, you're going to want to make sure the finances for the next year's car are set on low. I believe it's set there by default, but just double check. And personally, I prefer to race on short length. I feel like I know how to race better in those conditions. So set it to like your preferred length in the options. So now once that's all set, you can get started on the challenge. And really just the main strategy is you're just going to want to take a page from Alan Prost's book, The Professor. You don't have to win races to win the championship. You just have to beat your top rivals. So if your top rival is Steinman Motorsport every race and Chapman goes out first and halts or something like that, she comes in 11th and you come in 3rd and 4th. Well, that's fine. You scored a lot of points on your rival in 2nd, so you should keep that and move forward. You want to make sure that the people scoring the most points relative to you are not the people right below you. You want to make sure that they're lower in the tables, which will end up having you way out in the lead and then a bunch of people fighting for 2nd. So that's really the best way that you can kind of control the league. Now go into race strategy. Since you're starting at the back of the field, you're going to want to have harder tires. You want to have the least amount of stops as possible and just really try to overcut the field. You could maybe try an undercut strategy, but you're going to have lots of stops. That might work on a longer length than short. But for short, since there's no refueling, you can just do harder tires and you can make it through most of the race. Now, obviously, there comes the obvious thing of the sprinklers. Honestly, one of the better opportunities to get points is with the sprinkler races because the AI don't know how to react to it properly. So you're basically just, as soon as it starts raining, you're going to want to make that strategy call onto either wets or intermediates, depending on how heavy the sprinklers are coming down. So just react to the sprinklers. Don't be afraid to load back. Okay, and weather never changes in a race. It's only the sprinklers that are random. So if you get halfway through a race and you just pit right before rain, the rain should come at the same time. So if you can hold off your pit stops and to get to that rain, then you'll have a much more perfected strategy for that particular race. Now, of course, sprinkler is random, so you could have an attempt where there are sprinklers, and then you could have an attempt where there aren't any sprinklers. I think it's about a 50-50 on which races have sprinklers and which don't. I think it's basically just random throughout the season, though. As far as tire heat, you're going to want to keep it in workable range. You may need to push meaning an extra stop on cooler tracks. But you don't want to have them graining or burning up too quickly. So just keep it in the workable range. Don't worry too much about your competitors, because your strategy is probably going to be way different than theirs. Like, even very few people do a one-stop strategy. The AI rarely do one-stop strategies. They usually, even if they're on the hard tires, they'll probably go over to like 2 stints of soft tires. So if you can beat them out on stops, you can usually make up a lot of positions. Plus, you have a really decent car. And definitely, you want to utilize your ERS down the straights to defend and overtake. So, especially straights, because your engine is terrible. So any help that you can get down the straights is really important. So definitely save it up for, if you're defending the position, defend it. If you see an overtaking opportunity, take it. But definitely keep saving up the ERS, because it is a big advantage whenever you use it down the straights. It makes up for your deficit. So I really try to delve into the engine development, because I could never figure it out last time. And so I really put a lot of effort into the engine this time. And I went all the way to, I never do risky parts, and I used risky parts this time. And I found that it was basically the only way to develop your engine competitively. But every single time, once my first risky engine got caught, all the other risky engines after that got caught as well. So I don't think it's ultimately worth it to risky parts, to use risky parts on the engine. I just, no matter what I did, I was still like 5th or 6th best engine, no matter what. I just think engine is basically a lost cause. Definitely develop it so that it's not like the lost cause that it is at the beginning of the season. But it's just, I don't know how you can develop that engine well enough. It's just never, ever above like 5th position. So every single time that you go in a race, you're going to want to score a good amount of points as well. So preferably 1st or 2nd, and like the team points. So whenever your manager comes back and says expected finish 1st, and you want to be actual finish 1st or 2nd, you want to have a lot of points. Don't be worried if you're 2nd or 3rd a few times, as in total team points. That's okay. You can survive a few bad weekends as long as you're really keeping up constant points. Especially like Milan and Ardennes and any track that's like high speed. You're going to struggle no matter what, because you have a terrible engine. So don't worry too much about those. Maybe do a couple attempts, see if you can get lucky, see if there's a sprinkler that goes off and you can beat the strategy calls. But don't worry about engine races, you'll do poorly. I also tried to do the swapping driver strategy, as in using the reserve if needed. It's a great way to score a win. And then I did look into people to replace Surikov, because Zoe Sharp is like the best driver in the whole championship, so you don't want to replace her. And there are a few that are basically at the same level as Surikov, but they obviously don't have the development that Surikov would have. However, you're not going to really be developing Surikov over years, so you can replace him. And I think the best replacement for Surikov is Jessica Monroe in the Asia Pacific Super Cup, because she has about the same stats as Surikov, and so she should be able to kind of fit into the league. She'll have the talent to fit in the league, and she'll start from the front for the first race. But unfortunately, she'll quickly fall back through the field. So you could, if you're having a really tough time, definitely don't worry. Like, if one of your drivers gets injured, don't worry about putting in a reserve, because they can score a win pretty easily, because you have a decent car and you're starting clean air from the front. And if you're still having troubles after all that, consider getting Jessica Monroe, replace either Surikov or your reserve driver, whichever one, and she'll race from the front, and then she'll just fall back through the field. But she'll be farther up than Surikov would have been. That is just an A strategy. She has about the same stats as Surikov. I tried to get a scouting facility, but I couldn't scout the new drivers fast enough. And of course, you could also poach a driver from another team, which would be good, because you'd be taking away from your competition, like if you got Wexler or Chapman. However, they still have their points, so they're still going to be starting from the back. So it really doesn't help your case. You could try to poach a driver from the lower teams who are starting from the front every time, and they'll probably have some decent stats. But I think to be 100% safe, I think Jessica Monroe is a great choice for the swapping driver strategy. And now let's go on to the rounds and be a little bit more specific what I did each race and each race weekend. So the lead up to the first race is really kind of important. You got to do a lot of stuff, ensure the lower difficulty, ensure financials set to lowest. And then I really started focus on the engine, like I said, because the engine just seems to always be crappy no matter what I do, and still haven't figured that out. But I still won the challenge with plenty of buffer. So I created a new engine and I started a new rear wing. I also did a bunch of scouting, but as I said, Jessica Monroe was the best option. So now into the race, which is a great attempt. There's 3 attempts that I did, and it was a great, chance for points, because the starting grid is Sharp in first and Surikov in 8th. So you have a great starting position. So to start out with, Sharp had softs on, and Surikov also has softs. This was the 3rd attempt, of course, so I had plenty of time to test his tire strategies. And so moving on to lap 11 and 12, Surikov pitted for softs in lap 11, and Sharp pitted lap 12 for super softs. And both strategies worked out really well. There's no sprinklers this race, but that's fine because Sharp still came in first and Surikov came in 3rd. I don't think I ever had a 1-2 this entire challenge. And the point gap to second was 21 points, and the competitor to watch was Van Dort Racing. Moving on to round 2, which took place in Singapore. Pre-race, I finished the rear wing and started a new gearbox. That's about it. I mean, obviously there's interviews and other stuff, but those really aren't important. And if you really want to know, you can just watch all the raw footage. I left it up on my channel in a playlist. And link in description, as I said. So the race this time, again, 3 attempts. Starting grid, because the reverse grid of your championship positions. So Sharp started in 20th and Surikov in 18th. I started both drivers on mediums. I get 3rd attempts, so I got a good idea of what I needed to do to get a good result. And then on lap 12 and 13, I pitted both Surikov on lap 12 for medium, and I pitted Sharp on lap 13 for mediums. Sprinklers activated on lap 17 of 23, which meant that the following lap, I put Sharp on wets on lap 18, and I put Surikov a lap later onto wets because I didn't want to double stack them, and also it was kind of intermediate weather at that point, so I didn't necessarily know if the wets were better or not, which in the end it really didn't matter because Sharp came in 4th and Surikov came in 5th. So they were pretty close together, so I don't think the strategy, the 1 lap buffer strategy, didn't really matter. It's not really a great result, but 2 championship rivals crashed out. I believe 1 Rossini car and 1 Steinman Motorsport car crashed out. So it was still a decent points haul compared to them. And plus we gained 7 points, so we had 28 point gap to second, and now the new competitor in second was Windsor Racing. Moving on to round 3, which took place in Sydney. Pre-race, the gearbox was finished. I created a front wing and started another gearbox. So I only did 1 attempt on this one, and that's because I got a pretty good result the first time. The starting grid was Sharp 20th and Surikov 18th again. The tire selection, I started a different strategy. Sharp on wets and Surikov on intermediates. Just wanted to kind of play the field and see which strategy was better, because it started out intermediate and then it went to full wet and then it went back to intermediate and then dry. So Surikov was strong in the beginning, made up a lot of positions, and then he started falling back because of the wet weather, and then it went back to intermediate and he managed to pull away again. It turns out that intermediates were the way to go. I didn't do a second attempt though, so I didn't really want to try it again and see if I could get Sharp and Surikov like really up there. And so lap 6 and 7, lap 6 for Sharp, switched on to mediums. Lap 7 for Surikov, switched on to mediums. And then both of them, I double stacked them, but I don't think they were too close. Lap 14, I put wets on because the sprinkler started on lap 13. In the end, Sharp came in 4th and Surikov came in 2nd. Great team result. And the point gaps a second went up 26 points. So we had a 54-point gap going into the 4th round, and the competitor to watch was Van Dort Racing again. So moving on to round 4, Yokohama. The pre-race, I finished the gearbox and then created brakes. The race was 2 attempts. Starting grid was Sharp in 20th and Surikov in 19th. Tire selection, I started them both on hards. And unfortunately for Surikov, I pitted him the same lap as the sprinklers. So it was like the beginning of lap 10 that I pitted him, and the sprinkler started halfway through lap 10. So he put on mediums on lap 10, and then the following lap I pitted them both for intermediates on lap 11, which we stayed on those tires for the rest of the race. And the results were that Sharp came in 1st. Unfortunate that Surikov pitted for mediums the lap before, because he probably could have had a better result, but 6th was not bad. We gained another 14 points on 2nd place car, 68 total point gap, and the competitor in 2nd was Windsor Racing. So moving on to round 5, Beijing. Pre-race we started an engine. The race, which we used 2 attempts, but we used the first one. The starting grid was Sharp in 20th, which is going to get tired of saying that eventually, but Sharp was always in 20th. So I'm just going to, just to know that Sharp was in 20th for the entire time after the first race. She never lost the lead. Surikov was in 18th, though. He switches between 18th, 17th, and 19th. So the tire selection for Sharp and Surikov were both mediums. There's no sprinklers this race, so I just had to kind of pick whenever I wanted to switch onto the mediums again. And so that came on lap 11 for Surikov and lap 12 for Sharp. The results, in the end, it turned out to be a pretty decent points haul. Surikov came in 3rd and Sharp came in 4th. Points gap only increased by 2, but that brings us to 70 point gap. And the competitor in 2nd was still Windsor Racing. Round 6 took place in Rio de Janeiro. Pre-race, we finished the engine, we created a rear wing, and started a front wing. The race had 2 attempts. Starting grid, Surikov was in 19th. Intermediate weather most of the race, but everyone was on dries to start with. Tire selection, Sharp and Surikov were both on softs. And then the sprinklers activated on lap 8, which just increased the, it went from intermediate to dry, and then sprinklers turned on, so it went back to intermediate. So I put on intermediates for both cars on lap 9. The results were okay. Sharp and Surikov were 3rd and 7th. I usually, whenever I get a podium, I usually keep that result, just because podiums are nice. Steinman Motorsports did get a 1-2, which they are really strong competitors, but their early season misfortune meant a 1-2 wasn't actually a bad result for us, since they were already down on the table. They were pretty far down. So, and as you can see, the points gap to 2nd still increased by 15 points. And Windsor was still in 2nd, so Steinman didn't even break into the 2nd spot. So, still a great result for us. We gained a lot of points still, and overall, it was a pretty decent opening to the season. Moving to round 7 in Phoenix. Pre-race, we finished the front wing and we started a suspension. The race, we only did 1 attempt, but that's because we got really good results, and we also just picked up a sponsor, an American sponsor, which allowed us to, I think it was like triple or like septuple our winnings for that race weekend or something. It was amazing. If you get that opportunity, take that sponsor, because I was set for life for that money. It's great. The starting grid, Surikov was in 18th. Tire selection, I started them both on mediums. Again, hard tire strategy. And then I swapped them on. There's no sprinklers, so I swapped them on to mediums. Surikov lap 11 and Sharp lap 12. The results, Sharp came in 2nd, which was the thing needed for the sponsor objective, and Surikov came in 5th. So points gap to second, we did lose 9 points. So as far as championship points go, a bad race. However, that sponsorship deal was really good. Got us a bunch of money so we could develop the car. We could basically do whatever we wanted for the rest of the season. I think we got like 12 mil or something, or 15 mil from that one race. It was amazing. So definitely try to do that opportunity if you get that sponsor with the home race bonus. Competitor in second was still Windsor Racing. So moving on to round 8 and the halfway point in the season. Pre-race, we finished a suspension and started another one. Basically, my strategy for the upgrades was whenever there was a critical part for that race, and it was our worst part of the critical parts, I just tried to develop that part and keep on developing it stuff. So moving on to the race, we only had one attempt for this one, but I always hate Vancouver, so I try to get out of there as quickly as possible. Not the city, just the racetrack. I don't know why. I can never score well here at all. Starting grid, Sharp was 20th and Surikov was 19th. The tire selection, it started out in intermediate weather, and then the sprinklers started lap 5, so we switched over to wets for both drivers on lap 6. And then lap 12, the sprinklers ended and the track cleared up, so we switched both of them onto ultras on lap 12. As I said, results were not great. Sharp got 3rd, Surikov got 11th, so no points for him. The points gap to second decreased by 2 points. We had a 74 total, and still Windsor Racing was in second. So moving on to the second half of the season with round 9 in Guildford. Pre-race, we finished that suspension and we started a new engine. This race had 2 temps. Starting grid, Surikov was in 18th. The tire selection, we started both drivers on mediums, and then on lap 12, this is one of the things that I was saying is the weather is pretty constant. Weather never changes, it's sprinklers that change. So I knew that the rain was coming on lap 12, so whenever I redid it the second time, I held it out until the final moments. Like I think my tires were down to like 10% for both cars. I just wanted to hold out until I could put on intermediate tires and do a one-stop. And it worked out amazingly. So I put intermediates on both cars, double stacked them on lap 12. Sprinklers didn't show up, just the rain. Results, Sharp was in second, Surikov in third, one of our best performances of the season. The points gap to second increased by 11 points, and competitor in second was Windsor Racing still. Moving on to round 10 in Tondela. Pre-race, we finished that engine and started a new gearbox. Race, we had 2 attempts. Starting grid, Surikov was in 19th. The tire selection for Sharp and Surikov were medium. I decided whenever the sprinkler started on lap 4, it was so early, my tires were still good. I put Sharp on the preferred strategy of switching to intermediates to kind of match it. But I really was like, let's try this out for Surikov. I left him on the mediums. Terrible strategy. Terrible. Always make the right strategy calls. Don't try to outsmart the AI or something. You'll rarely get away with that. Just make sure that you follow the weather and just make sure that you put the right tires on for the right time. You'll lose a lot of time if you don't. I switched Sharp from intermediate or onto the intermediates lap 5, and then I switched her onto the mediums after the sprinklers on lap 11. Surikov, on the other hand, I kept him on the mediums and only swapped him onto more mediums on lap 13. And he did make up some ground back. He finished in 10th, scoring I think a point, but Sharp came in first. So, and I think Surikov was ahead of Sharp whenever I made that decision. So, disaster strategy. Always try to make your way into the pits and put the right tires on for the right weather, because it destroys your race otherwise. We gained 22 points though on our competitor in second. Still, it's Windsor Racing, and we had a total of 107 gap. Round 11 took place in Milan, and as I was saying before, that is a engine-heavy track. So you can probably guess the result. But pre-race, we did finish a gearbox and we started brakes. The race had 2 attempts, but we used the first. Starting grid, Sharp was in 20th, Surkov was in 18th. Tire selections, we started Sharp and Surkov on hards. And then the sprinklers came on lap 3. So I pretty much immediately boxed Surkov on lap 4 for wets. Sharp, I let out for a little bit for 1 extra lap and put her on wets on 5th because it wasn't quite wet weather. And then it dried out and we put them both on soft on lap 11. And then, so the end result was Sharp was in 9th, Surkov was in 8th. Again, showing that you really just want to switch those right tires as soon as possible because you'll lose a lot of time during 1 lap for sure. It's a bad result, but again, Milan is an engine-heavy track, so it's not the worst thing in the world. We scored some points. We did lose 12 points on the point gap to second, so we had 95 points. And the competitor in second was Windsor Racing still. Moving on to round 12, Munich. Pre-race, we finished the brakes and we started an engine. The race was 2 attempts. The starting grid, Surkov was in 17th after some bad performances. Tire selection, we started both drivers on hards. And then we went to wets, lap 3 for Surkov and lap 4 for Sharp. Lap 9, the sprinklers ended. Well, sprinklers started on lap 2, I should say. Sprinklers ended on lap 9. So we put both of our drivers on softs. And then, unfortunately, Sharp crashed on lap 15. But Surkov continued. He put on intermediates on lap 18, which I made the amazing strategy call of on lap 2, started in the middle of lap 2 for the sprinklers. Surkov went onto the wets at the end of lap 2, so the beginning of lap 3. And then he undercut the entire field. He went from like 15th or 14th to 1st. And it was amazing. It was the best strategy call I've ever made. And it was just, that's the reason why he won, is because after that he just flew away from the field. Not to mention that, Munich is a pretty good race for a car. So, unfortunate for Sharp, but amazing result for Surkov. I didn't want to throw away the win. Like I said, if I get a podium, I usually just keep the attempt. Sharp was injured, which meant that the reserve driver would sub in. I was a little bit worried about that because I wasn't sure how the reserve driver would do, but we'll find out how she did in the next round. So points gap increased by 4 points. So that was another reason why I kept it. We still increased the point gap up to 99. And the competitor in second was Windsor Racing. Round 13, Ardennes. Pre-race, we finished the engine and we started a new engine. Again, this was the point of the season where I was just putting everything I could in the engine and just doing risky parts and everything. For the race, it was 1 attempt. You'll find out why. Starting grid was Surkov in 20th and Piaget in 1st. Tire selections, Piaget I started her on super soft because she was at the beginning, or the front of the field in 1st. So I wanted to have her a clean getaway. Surkov started on mediums and when it went to super softs on lap 11, Piaget went to softs on lap 7. There was no sprinklers this race, so it wasn't tricky strategy really. It was just making the right time for switching over tires for 1 stop. The results, Piaget stayed in 1st the entire time. It was a really amazing drive, really mature drive for a reserve driver, that's for sure. Stayed out of trouble, and I don't think she ever lost the lead. She just kind of flew away. Well, she did lose the lead whenever she switched over tires, but that's not really losing the lead. Surkov came home 11th. It's a terrible track for us, Ardennes. It was an engine track. So it was a great result despite that fact. So it just shows how powerful that strategy is, replacing a driver. Just starting first can do so much for you, especially since like all of your competitors are at the back of the field. So you're flying away at the front already, and they have to work their way through the field to even get a chance to attack you. So it's a great strategy replacing the driver. Points gap to second increased by 12 points, up to 106, and the competitor in second was Windsor Racing still. Moving on to round 14, Black Sea. Pre-race, we didn't do anything. We kind of just stopped developing the car. We just, first off, we were making a legendary engine, so it was taking like 30 days. But yeah, I just kind of let the development stopped from there on in. We were up 106 points with 3 races left, so I wasn't too worried. So race, Sharp is back. Starting grid, Sharp still in 20th despite missing a race. Shows how dominant she's been. Surikov was in 19th. I took 2 attempts on this one. This is kind of like the last actual race I tried in. Sharp and Surikov were on hards, and then I switched them over to hards on lap 11, both of them at the same time, and then wets on lap 23 because the sprinkler started on lap 22. Sharp finished in 4th, and Surikov finished in 3rd. However, Sharp was demoted to 5th due to an illegal engine again. So I should have taken that hint and not used another illegal engine for the rest of the season, but I just kind of wanted to test since I was up so much. So in the end, Sharp was promoted to 3rd and Surikov was demoted to 5th. Points gap to 2nd increased by 5 points, so we had 111 points over Windsor Racing. Moving on to round 15, Doha. Pre-race, again, waiting for that engine to build / we're done developing the car. This race was really dead rubber. I think either this race or last race it was confirmed that Zoe Sharp was the champion. And I just, wanted just to finish the challenge and get rid of it because I was 111 points up. So I didn't see any threat at all from the other teams. So I just took the 1 attempt. Starting grid, Sharp was in 20th, Surikov was in 18th. Tire selection started them both on hards. Again, Surikov got the short end of the stick. He went on to mediums on lap 11. Sprinklers started halfway around that lap. So Sharp went on to the intermediates immediately after that on lap 12. And then I tried to let Surikov out there just push really hard on those tires and hope for the best. But I put on intermediates on lap 13 where they stayed on those for the rest of the race. The results were Sharp came in 4th and Surikov came in 12th, but he was demoted to 16th due to another illegal engine. I was really trying to develop this engine, but it just never is going to work. Trust me. I mean, if you find out a way to make the engine development work, let me know. Points gap to 2nd decreased by 12 points down to 99, and there was a new competitor in 2nd, Steinman Motorsports. So final round 16, Cape Town. Pre-race, nothing to really report. Race, 1 attempt, starting grid. Surikov was in 17th. Tire selections, Sharp and Surikov both started on softs, and then I kind of offset them for the rest of the race. Lap 10 for Surikov, super softs. Lap 11 for Sharp, super softs. Lap 19 for Surikov, super softs. Lap 20 for Sharp, super softs. So the results, Sharp came in 8th. Surikov came in 12th. Demoted to 18th to do another illegal engine. Really doesn't matter. I think they're just getting angry that we were using illegal engines. Points gap to 2nd decreased by 39 points. I believe it was double points, but still 99 points should be insurmountable. I think it was a Steinman 1-2. We barely scored points. Doesn't matter. We won. So to wrap things up, it was a pretty easy second time through actually once I kind of understood how to win the challenge. It wasn't a fight for first. It was a fight for whatever points we could get over the team in second. It just pay attention to the live championship points. See who's getting the most points. As long as you're beating the person in second, you're doing good. It shouldn't be that hard once you kind of frame that mindset. And then just overall, just kind of work on your race craft. Make sure that you know how to win races, and you're still making good results every time. Other than that, just race hard. Take a page from the professor's book, as I was saying, Alan Prost. Get the places that you can get. Don't try to go for the win every race. Obviously, wins are great. Wins put you on top. I would definitely say try to start off with a win, because that is your first race, and that is probably your car is probably gonna be most competitive then, because your car just goes downhill all season. I'm gonna guess that I just don't know how to develop cars properly, but that engine is so bad. I tried everything to make that engine better, and it just nothing worked. So definitely work on that. You could try risky parts for develop engine, but they all got banned for me. Just score a good amount of points every time. And definitely try the swapping driver strategy. I think Jessica Monroe would fit great in the car. You could even try alternating drivers. You might affect morale too much to do that. Like you could demote Surkov to reserve driver, promote Piaget to second driver, and then like swap them in and out. And then you could even throw in a third driver of getting rid of Piaget or Surkov and putting in Jessica Monroe. But that way you could start from a lower number, because you could swap them out every other race, and hopefully, I mean, obviously people in the far back aren't going to score enough points to overtake them, but you might be in the middle of the pack instead of back in 17th or 18th, you know. And definitely getting Jessica Monroe, you know, fresh out of Formula 2 or an Asia Pacific Super Cup, I should say. She has no points, so she'll start up front for the first race, and then she'll win a race, and she'll probably go back to 5th or 6th, but it's still a good gap to the actual teams that are competitive with you. So hopefully this challenge helped you. Let me know if there's anything I can be specific on. Again, link in the description for the playlist for the raw footage. You can see literally everything I did except for the attempts that I didn't keep. Didn't see a reason why you'd want to watch those. I don't know. I can upload literally raw footage if you want me to, but I think that's plenty. They're all about 20 minutes each, so that's a lot of time to watch. Definitely like use your arrow keys or the J and L and just kind of skim through them with skipping 10 seconds at a time. Click through them and stuff. Don't watch those, I mean, unless you really have trouble and you want to follow exactly what I did to win this challenge. But yeah, so hopefully this helps you. Anything else I can do, let me know. Sorry for taking so long. I had a lot to do, have a lot of work and stuff. About to be heading back to college here, so I'm, you know, just going to be working in a different manner. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for all the support on my other guide videos. I've never thought that I would have like 10k views on a video, and I think I almost have 20k views or something. I have so many views on these videos, it's not even funny. It's just, thank you guys so much, and hopefully this will help you. Thanks for watching.